Hi there, and thank you for joining us on the Overcomers Overcoming podcast. We feature those who are in the process of overcoming or have overcome any type of life encounter, life obstacle that at the time seemed to be almost insurmountable. With this podcast, we have three objectives in mind. Our first objective is we want you to know with a confident resolve you are not alone. We want to work with you. We want you to know there are others who are working with you, who want to help you through whatever you are encountering, and together we will get through whatever you're experiencing.
Our second objective is there are multiple options for any life encounter you are facing. We want to help you develop a resolve that there are various options and solutions to any life dilemma.
Our third objective is to help you with critical thinking skills. If you're encountering something that was possibly a decision you made sometime in the past, and if you had the opportunity for a life redo, you would make a different decision. We want to help you with those critical thinking skills that can help you make an informed decision and not encounter what you're going through at the moment. We are the Cooper Culture, a veteran-owned business. We work with business personnel and families to develop and sustain connected relationship cultures within their families and organizations. That type organization is one where people feel wanted, appreciated, and genuinely a part of that organization. I'm with my wife and business partner, Marty, who is helping me facilitate this podcast. Today we feature Dr. Scott, who is an acknowledged, diagnosed autistic person who is learning to teach others how to work with autistic people. He has autistic children, but he has achieved a doctorate degree. So it's not a matter of autistic people not being able to learn. It is a matter of adapting to their learning style and helping them determine what they're good at, their sweet spot, their strengths. And when we learn to adapt to and deal with those with autism, we can help them be everything God created them to be. Marty, what are some takeaways our listeners can gain from Dr. Scott?
This was a very educational podcast on autism. Listening to someone that has autism and how he has been successful in getting his career a doctorate, as you said. Autistic children are smart in their sweet spot. People characterizes them as something's wrong with them. There's nothing wrong with them. They just have a different learning style. He goes through also, how do you speak to an autistic child? Because they listen differently.
It's an opportunity to learn and how we can apply what we learn when we are in the presence of an autistic person. Let's listen and learn together. Dr. Scott, thank you so much for joining us. I want our listeners to know you are diagnosed as and you identify as being autistic. Our listeners and we need to learn from this that there's some, at least my perception, there are some people who are autistic and they're just kind of put aside, so to speak. And it's a matter of social skills. I'm giving you my perspective. But Dr. Scott, great to have you with us. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Talk to us about social developments, what autism is, kind of at the high school level. We know you have the PhD and you are diagnosed autistic. And so, we know based on your life, autistic people are very smart. They can achieve whatever they want to, but my perception is sometimes we just need to be able to adapt to those who are on the spectrum of autism. And if anything I've said is incorrect, please correct that.
I think when we look at the autism spectrum, we have to take into account those individuals who as adults will need extensive supports. There are those individuals who will never be self-supporting for a number of reasons, and autism may be but one of them. And then you have individuals like myself who can navigate with the help of, in my case, a very special wife, two wonderful children and support of mentors. So, for myself, Temple Grandin, Lars Perner, Stephen Shore, those of us with PhDs who have made it through and have survived, I think the key there is we did it with help, just like everybody. But because our social impairments and our thinking can be different, our needs can be different, and I can't generalize about anyone's autism, but for myself, I was diagnosed later in life when the labels changed when I was in my late 30s and the DSM, the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual, was updated. When the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of the mental health professions changed, it moved a lot of people from things like pervasive developmental disorder over to autism. Well, what is a pervasive developmental disorder? In my case, it is several of the official criteria: deficits in social emotional reciprocity. So, reciprocity means I understand how other people are thinking, what facial expressions mean, what their tone of voice is. Well, with autism, for me, that can be very difficult. I can't always tell when someone's being sarcastic versus being serious. I can't tell when they're upset versus angry. To my daughter, my oldest, a lot of times when someone is upset and hurt, they sound angry to her. So we're not very good at discerning very fine differences in emotions and responses. So if someone is louder to us, we may perceive it as yelling, and we may then say, well, they must be angry because that seems to be what anger is. So because we lack that social emotional reciprocity and that natural, what are called mirror neurons, they don't fire properly. And mirror neurons are very interesting. Children develop these very early. And what it is where you see a child imitate its parents or imitate the peers, imitate other children. A lot of autistics do not engage in parallel play or parallel emotions. We just, for whatever reason, we don't mirror well. We don't have that reciprocity. It really becomes a hindrance as you get into middle school, high school, and obviously college, where social skills help determine success, much as they do for adults, but it becomes more of a challenge. Our oldest is 11. She is in middle school, and she was moved from a 504 to an IEP, and everyone says, oh gosh, is it her academics? No, she's a straight A student. Well, why would they move her from a 504, which is very minimal supports, simple supports under the Individuals with Disabilities in Education Act? Why would they move her to an individualized education program? It was because she did not always understand the abstract speech, the metaphors, the similes, the social cues that teachers were sending to her. You give her work, she can do the work. Just as myself, Temple Grandin, Stephen Shore, those of us with PhDs, you give us the work, we can do work. We can learn. What we can't do is navigate the social situation that is the classroom or the school or the university. So that's why we see so many children who were PDD and OS, or they had other diagnoses, OCD, ADHD. They hit middle school and the teachers start saying, there's something else here. They're really not connecting the way we might expect other students to connect. You'll see these later in life diagnoses of autism because the social impairments become so significant to success.
You have discussed a lot of things that I just feel we need awareness. I use the term awareness. You mentioned some of you need help. You got help, that you were surrounded with, I'm going to use the term support group, maybe not formal, but those who adapted to, understood you. You mentioned some of the social skills. Our granddaughter is one. She hears something loud, maybe it's loud talk, and you think I'm angry. Well, no, not at all. All I'm trying to do is emphasize. But I'm bringing up those things to ask you, are there these aspects of which, if we were more aware, we could be more supportive of those. Your daughter, as an example, transition from a 504 to an IEP because, let's just say, my perception is her teachers, or at least those in the school, perceived, and accurately it seems, that she benefited from that. And so I'm going through all of that. It's a long processing point to ask you the question: is it a matter of us being aware of so that we can help support?
The problem with the IEP, in my point of view, it says that the child or the adult needs support. We need to be fixed, that there's something wrong with us. So she'll receive extra training. Our youngest actually receives extra training as well at school with the meeting with the therapist on social skills. So both of my daughters receive those social skills support, but what it really is it's training the autistic or the neurodiverse student with ADHD or other neurodiverse needs how to recognize and respond to other people. So the onus is placed on us. It is up to me to learn and to understand and to navigate the world around me. And in some ways, I find that insulting because it says I'm the one that's broken.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm?
Mm-hmm.
If we just look at the category A of autism, as we go through, there's A through E. But if we look at A, which is the social communication and interaction, which is the big one, that's why it's A. What it says is you can't recognize anger versus disappointment versus frustration, therefore you're flawed. When really, if people would use words that meant what they said, it would help me a lot. It would help all students a lot. If I said, I'm a little frustrated right now because this isn't working well, instead of sounding angry to the autistic student who doesn't know that you're just frustrated with something in the lab or whatever. I catch myself frequently telling my students, because I know I need that feedback, I'm not upset with anything going on right now. I just can't seem to get the projector to work. Give me a few minutes while I fight the projector. I'm not upset with anyone in class. I'm just trying to get the technology to work. And most teachers can relate to that. But what I'm trying to say to all my students is, now, if I seem a little frustrated and I'm kind of turning a little red here, it's because the power button's not working or the connection to the computer is not working. I am not angry. I know I'm frustrated. I make that very clear. Most people don't. Most people who aren't autistic just go on with life and assume everyone knows they're frustrated or angry or whatever.
It's very important to me that in the context of your daughter IEP, I equate that maybe inappropriately to learning style, or at least there's an analogy to learning style. We're just adapting to. Some people learn best through listening, some through looking, that kind of thing. But the IEP to me does not mean, and I think too many people think, well, you're broken, something wrong with you. I think of it as a learning style. Now, again, if I'm too simplistic and I'm not understanding, please correct me, but I think our listeners need to learn this.
So there is a significant difference between the 504. So the 504 plan is where you make an adjustment, but it doesn't affect the student's overall learning ability. So a 504 might be putting the student with glasses at the front of the room, giving the student preferential seating, minor accommodations, but you're not changing the outcomes or expectations. The difference with an individualized education program is, to some extent, you are modifying the educational delivery and you may be modifying some of the outcomes. So it's more significant, and IEPs only exist through high school. We don't do them at the university level. We don't change our learning strategies or outcomes based on a student. But K-12, you can actually adjust the learning. So an individualized education program, it is the education you might be modifying. So for an example, an IEP might include an orthopedic injury. The child literally cannot do PE. They have an orthopedic condition, cannot do that educationally mandated 2 years of PE. So the IEP waives them. A 504 would not. A 504, you get the same classes, the same outcome, but we're going to modify it a little. So you get adaptive PE. We'll make some changes. Maybe there are some sports that your child, we do some allowances for a physical reason. But you do an IEP, the rules change. So an IEP is far more serious, requires a lot more of the school system. It requires more documentation. It requires revision every 3 years. It requires constant meeting with the teams. As where a 504 is, we know that this child is learning better auditory, visual, whatever. We're going to make some adjustments to our learning and teaching style. We'll roughly document them. But an IEP is a plan. It is a document with outcomes, with adjustments. And it may be that your child is only expected to do 60% of something or 70% of something. As with the 504, the child will do 100% of what everyone else does.
That's very important. And the I is individualized. And then with the individualized education, it could be and is modified program to the individual. It is the way that individual processes information. That's the way I'm processing everything you're saying. And again, I don't want to be overly simplistic or wrong. Every one of us is listening or learning as you're telling us.
The 504, the way I look at it is if you're looking at the 504 is very broad. It defines disability far more broadly than an IEP. The IEP is special education. It is what we call special education. That is typically the IEP, the individualized education program or individualized education plan. It is covered by the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. It is very specific. There are 13 very specific disabilities in the IEP that are outlined. And if you fall out of those 13, it gets more complicated. As where the 504, all it is the child has a disability, struggles in school, has a different learning style, and we're going to adapt to those needs. And that's really just covered by the 504, Section 504 of the Rehab Act of 1973. So the 504 can be as simple as a teacher recognizes that this child has a little bit of a need that we're going to meet. The IEP, there are 13 very specific challenges listed, including ADHD and autism. There are physical, like I said, orthopedic injuries are listed under IEP, and there are others. Vision is under an IEP if it's considered blindness or eventual blindness, progressive. Auditory, if it's past a certain level, you automatically move to an IEP instead of a 504. So the IEP is very serious. It requires federal reporting. It requires, as I said, every 3 years you must renew in every state. Some states even do it more frequently. The IEP has to have the very clear goals in writing. It has to have the child's present levels of academic function. It has to have what your goals of academic function are. As we're a 504, you were expected, okay, this is where the class is going. This is where you're going.
As you graduated from high school, would it be fair to assume you had an IEP, or were the IEPs in existence then?
I did not.
Okay, so the IEPs came into existence after you graduated from high school. For those who are in an IEP right now, don't have IEPs in college at any
No.
level, but are there tailored programs for the autistic, or how does, and you mentioned you had support groups all the way through, it seems, your education. Did you have a tailored support group or something? I'm not even sure what the term might be.
No, even today we find that universities are mandated to deliver education without modifying the nature and outcome of a course. So what happens is we get students who have had IEPs and they come into the university setting, which is only covered by the Americans with Disabilities Act and to a lesser extent the Rehab Act, but we are not really covered by IEPs and special ed. If you are in pre-vet, you want to be a veterinarian, students who got used to extra time on test in high school, there is no extra time when you are doing surgery on an animal. The animal does not give you 1.5 time. It doesn't. So a university cannot and should not modify things that are key to the outcome of that degree's meaning. If you are saying you're going to be a nurse, you better function well under pressure and under time limits. So the time limits can't be waived because we're talking about people's lives if we give you that nursing certificate. That may be different for an English class. It is not uncommon for an English department to say, yes, disability services, disability resources, we will give students with learning disabilities 1.5 time on our test. We will do that. I teach business communications. We have an accommodation policy, which all of my lectures are on slides. They are provided as outlines. They are provided as audio. So any student with any learning style can access my materials because it's a general education required course. I try to make it as accessible as I can to all individuals. Last semester, I had several students who were blind, who were not just vision impaired, but legally blind. And I also had several who were deaf. They were able to navigate my class because things are provided in written form, they're provided in audio form, they are provided in slides, recorded lectures, etc. But if those same students wanted to be nurses or vets or whatever, those major courses, they will not be modified if it affects the outcome and the meaning of the degree. So unfortunately, your granddaughter's in high school, my daughter's in middle school. Too often parents rely on the IEP, get really used to the IEP, when I believe we have to balance, just as we would training wheels on a bike. As the child gets better and better, then remove some of the extra time, remove some of the extra accommodation. So when they go to a university or a community college or wherever they're headed, that they don't go into that setting and then they hear that there's no support or less support, that they fail. That is what concerns me for our high school students, is too many of them are allowed to get more and more supports up until their senior year, and then when they go away in the college setting, or they're reduced, they're not ready for that reduction or elimination in some services.
Let me advance further the medical part, and certainly agree with you and understand you have to be able to diagnose and repair a medical in the medical context. You don't have additional time. Is there a brain scan? Is there anything that can help the autistic or the parent, grandparent of an autistic person determine if you are able to adapt to that time schedule and not have the academic schedule modified? Can that be determined before you get started on a path and then determined later if you're on the wrong path?
I think this is true for everybody. I think we all have to find out where our strengths and weaknesses are. I know autistic actors, I know autistic artists, I know autistics in the medical fields, and they're able to perform under pressure because what happens is they attack the problem. They're good at solving problems. Their bedside manner may be lacking, but they're very skilled as surgeons or whatever they wish to be. I think that's why, again, we need to say that everyone's an individual. The autism spectrum doesn't preclude that there could be an autistic who's an excellent doctor or nurse or whatever. I know many who are excellent, as I said, surgeon. The challenge with autism is when we say someone's autistic, it could mean so many different things. So what I tell my daughter as they're signing up for classes, I tell my daughters, let's find out what you like. Let's find out how you do with it. Let's see which things you love so much that we need as few supports as possible. I am never going to live my dream of being athletic. I'm certainly never going to live my dream of being a professional musician. There are physical limitations. I have some physical issues that just would certainly preclude. You have to adapt. And I know that some autistics at first, when they hear that, they're like, well, you're asking me to change. No, everyone has something that keeps them from doing an activity. What we need to do is find out what you love so much that you are willing to find the supports you need to succeed and still do all of the required outcomes. In high school, if you find that you always need 1.5 to 2 times the math, then you probably shouldn't be working on live missions at NASA, because rocket's about to go off, you don't get extra time. But there's no reason you can't be a designer who takes a few extra moments at home to work on plans. You can't be designed and, being a good engineer, but you can't be in the time sensitive aspects of safety engineering. And that's the key, is really helping someone find where they thrive, where it matches their personality as well as their autistic traits. I'm extremely sensitive, sensory sensitivity. I get migraines. I'm sensitive to input. That means I can't really work in an environment that's super crowded. Well, that's going to rule out certain types of work. Certain types of work will never work for me because of my sensory overload. Sensory overload is part of, I'm trying to think of how you would say, it can be part of the CDE of autism. The sensory processing for me, I'm very sensitive, as I said, to sound, to light, to input. There are just places that are loud, noisy, and crowded. I can't work those, and I never should think about working those.
What you're saying is just extremely useful. And Marty and I frequently use the term, it is strengths, but to find the sweet spot. And we may have to go through maybe 30, 40, 50 different things until we find exactly that, yep, this seems to be a really good match, and move on with that. Is that a viable approach? Is that just, that's a very elementary question, but I think it's very important.
When we look at autism, we find that there are a lot of strengths. And I know Dr. Grandin in her books has talked about these. If I'm interested in something, I can hyperfocus. That is a trait many autistics share, many ADHD people share. If I have something I love, I can really focus on it and do it for hours and hours and hours. That is by definition what a professor does. A professor of whatever, in Dr. Grandin's case, animal science, and in my case, technical communication, I can focus for hours on a computer problem and the data. I can. So what I do is I find ways to take my strength, which is hyperfocus in the areas I care about, and turn that to my academic advantage. Courses I'm not interested in, I really struggle with, more so than the average student. The average student doesn't like a subject. They'll sit there, take it, and get a C. I'll walk out. Well, I need to, the support to remind me, okay, you need to take a language. So which language fits? Or you need to take this course. You may not like the subject, but let's find one thing in those courses that you will take. My daughter is at the point now where she has to choose electives. Well, I don't want her in an elective where she starts to hate school. So I have to think about her autistic perseverance. And that's what I call it, perseverance. I know we call it other things, and I want to just get past those. I know we can talk about other words for repetitive and perseverative. Perseverance sounds better. Stick-to-itiveness.
Yep.
I need to go with what she will stick to it with. And so, yeah, she may get a high school credit for taking a certain class, and she may still need a certain number of high school credits as she transfers from middle school to high school. But there are classes she's just not equipped to take because she will literally not do the work.
Let me ask you about hyperfocus in the context of iPad, but she can be very creative as she's hyperfocusing on or with the iPad. We look at that as that may be a sweet spot. She's good at, let's just say, creativity on the iPad, but we want to make certain that we're identifying a sweet spot as opposed to going off in the wrong direction, or let's say, I guess, distractive hyperfocus.
Well, and in that case, I would ask, have you seen, and she might have, your granddaughter, the Procreate tools for iPad and the Apple Pencil. I do know some autistic artists who do titles and animation in Hollywood and do animation and stills. And if you're really good with an iPad and you can use the program Procreate, which is the highest rated on the iPad, with the Apple Pencil or another pencil, go for it. And then watch the videos, buy the books, find out how to be good at this, because there is a career path. And if that is your interest, then graphic arts in college. There are 2-year programs at community colleges. And then if you get through that, then maybe you transfer into a 4-year. What we need to do is help students, all students, every student, no matter disabled, not disabled, what is your strength? What's the career path where you will have the most success? We do have to be realistic. We do have to tell students, okay, your interest is archaeology. News for you, archaeologists do not become millionaires, but you're really, really into dinosaur bones. Wonderful. We need archaeologists. Fantastic. But you tell them realistically, look, this means you're going to work in a government job or for a museum. It means these things, and you can earn a respectable income doing this. What we need to do is with all students, tell them right up front, this is the career path. This is what it means. Here are the opportunities. For an autistic person who's very black and white, it helps to know that. Okay, as an artist, there are these tools that are actually popular among professional artists on the iPad. Will you be willing to learn the professional tools on the iPad? Now, if the student says, no, I want to use what I want to use, then you have a problem. Okay, let's play a social game. I'm the employer. You come to me and I say, we use Procreate. Are you saying you don't want a job? And social skills games like that work, with all students, not just autistics. And you talk about that. Okay, you want to learn the Adobe suite. You want to learn Procreate because you like your iPad and art. This is the path. Will you do these things to reach that path when you are 22, 23 years old? For my daughter, she is very interested in animals. Not great with people, loves animals. Mm-hmm. Okay, well, let's look at biological science. Let's look at environmental science. Let's look at habitat science and preservation programs. I teach at a wonderful research university that has an amazing history of working in the veterinary sciences, but there are other things you can do other than deal with pet owners. Right? If you don't good with people, you don't want to be a vet, with a private practice.
Yeah.
But there are other things you can do.
I thank you for telling us and our audience how you talk to an autistic person. They don't relate like you relate. It's like with Angelina, okay, we have 5 minutes, 5 minutes to leave. We got to get going a time. Or you have 20 minutes and you have 10 minutes left on your iPad. Learn how to talk to them and how they understand you.
Well, and I'm not good with time or anything, right? I know that I struggle with all those things. But yes, clear communication, clear expectations. Nothing frustrates me more when the employer, in my case, the university, is unclear. And obviously, it's a huge bureaucracy. We have 75,000 students. I have no idea how many instructors. At any given moment, there's between 50 and 100 instructors in my department. Just trying to do my annual paperwork for my annual contract is such a burden because the instructions are unclear to me. So I need to go to HR. HR does have someone who is interested in neurodiversity and is supportive. And I can say, this is not clear to me. When it says put in all your research, does it mean everything that I have done since 2010, or does it mean since I worked here? It does not say. Which is it? Because different people are telling me different things. One person said it's your research here in Texas, and someone else is saying, no, all your research. What have you ever done? I need it to say right there on the screen. A better screen would have said enter research from the last 6 years or enter research from. I need very concrete, very clear instructions and clarity, or I panic. I think that that's true of many autistics. If it's not clear, I panic, I get anxious, and it's extremely, extremely important to me that we understand that need for concrete clarity. And it's not just autism, it's ADHD, it's people with PTSD, because anxiety, social anxiety, can also cause stress if you're unclear. Be as clear as you can, especially for young people, and then teach them. Teach your middle school student, your high school student with autism to self-advocate and to say to the teacher, I read the instructions. However, I have these questions because they're unclear to me. That way you don't turn in work and have the teacher say, well, you didn't follow the instructions. I followed what I understood the instructions to be. Your instructions were unclear. Well, then the teacher gets defensive and says, no, everyone else understood them. It's very important that we talk to our daughters and say, okay, we need you, when you're not sure, walk up to the teacher and say, I don't understand this. And we do that with accommodations too, and say, I'm having difficult time today. Today, I have the IEP or the 504. May I have the extra time today because I'm anxious? Now, later on, maybe she can wean herself off the extra time, but we need our students to become advocates for themselves as family members and guardians. We also have to support them at that. And we have to tell the teacher, listen, she has an IEP or she has a 504. If she comes to you and says, I need a bit extra time today for my anxiety, could you please say, okay, and just be supportive and don't ask why. That's not what we do at the university. University, if I get a letter that says this student may need extra time at your discretion, I give the student the extra time. I don't want to accuse the student of trying to get an unfair advantage or anything like that. We just need to listen to the students, be supportive. And the student, once they're comfortable and feel safe, they often stop asking for as many supports because they don't feel as much anxiety.
What you're saying is extremely important. And I want to ask you, we have another episode scheduled with you for the person who might say, I would rather give up than to ask for clarity because the instructions are not clear and I just don't even want to pursue this, just too hard. Can you help us on our next episode to help that person? How can we help that person buckle down? And you may use a different term, but no, you can take this on. You can overcome this. You can understand this. You can. Just don't give up. Can you help us with that?
Oh, yes. And I think half the job of a good parent or a good teacher is being a cheerleader.
Oh
Yeah.
gosh, that is so incredibly important right there. And is there something special wording. Otherwise, to be a good cheerleader, can you help us with that? That's just another topic we have got to understand. Dr. Scott, we're off to a great start. I am totally intrigued with everything you're saying. Our listeners are benefiting from this. We look forward to continuing this dialogue with another episode. Thank you so much for being so helpful with everybody who's listening.
Thank you again for the opportunity, and I hope everyone listening understands everyone is different. And the strategy of listening works for not only autistics, but for everyone in your life. Just listen.
Wow, that's great. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
We appreciate having the opportunity to share our and our guests' life's experiences with you.
The Cooper culture advances organizations to achieve and sustain high retention rates, connected communication, and trust through personality insights and principled leadership. You can contact us at our website, thecooperculture.com, and you can contact us directly at ron@thecooperculture.com or Marty, Marty, at thecooperculture.com. We work with you to help assess aspects of your culture to advance the environment and people to their best performance. We do that through our staff of certified personal performance coaches, leadership trainers, keynote speakers, and DISC personality behavior experts. You can book a speaking engagement directly through our website by contacting us at ron@thecooperculture.com. We look forward to sharing our life experiences with you, some of which are profound, some of which are pretty funny. Some of those life experiences are ones we'll never do that again because we've been through stuff. We truly look forward to working with you, speaking with you, helping advance you in any way that we can.